Een hele goede avond of goede dag, wanneer je dit ook luistert, mensen. Ik kreeg een opmerking, vraag, wanneer komt er weer een keer een spiritual life? En inderdaad, dat is al een tijd geleden. Niet dat ik mij volledig laat inspireren door AI of iets dergelijks, helemaal niet zelfs. Maar ik ben zo ontzettend druk geweest met nieuwe skills aanleren en nieuwe dingen ontdekken en weet ik veel wat. Ontzettend druk geweest gewoon. En voor zo'n spiritual life zou je toch eventjes een beetje moeten concentreren, een beetje moeten zitten, een beetje moeten relativeren. En ik ben nou eenmaal zo'n druk persoon dat ik mezelf af en toe voorbij loop en eigenlijk er zelf niet zoveel tijd aan besteed. Daarnaast heb ik natuurlijk sowieso een constante verbinding in die zin en laat ik me de hele dag inspireren door het hogere bewustzijn. En zijn al mijn acties eigenlijk vanuit intuïtie en vanuit mijn hart of gevoel opgestart. En leef ik nog steeds bijzonder radicaal anders als wat ik enkele jaren geleden eigenlijk altijd deed. Maar goed, ik heb dus sowieso weer een heel verhaal opgeschreven. En ik wou dit keer eventjes helemaal oldschool volgens de oude, echte spiritual lifestyle. Dus zonder mezelf in beeld, althans ondersteunend met beelden en niet gelijk direct live op camera. Juist ook lekker met die filter eroverheen, dat het allemaal wat warmer klinkt en met de juiste achtergrondmuziek. Om het in de juiste sfeer te brengen bij deze bijzondere boodschap wederom. En weet je, nou ben ik sowieso de laatste maanden, aangezien er ook zoveel in onze externe wereld aan de gang is, qua scams, oplichting, wereldgebeurtenissen, dreiging, weet ik veel wat er allemaal op ons afkomt tijdens deze ongelooflijk waanzinnige jaren sinds 2019. Maar goed, dus ook deze spiritual life gaat ook over de voortgang in onze wereld vandaag de dag. Tijd voor wederom een spiritual life met vandaag ook weer een interessante, maar controversiële theorie. Een theorie die echter wel wordt ondersteund door veelzeggende fysieke bewijzen. Bewijzen die door de algemene geaccepteerde wetenschap uiteraard niet worden geaccepteerd, worden besproken, maar desalniettemin gewoon wel keihard bewijzen dat deze controversiële theorie toch wel eens een heel bijzondere waarheid kan zijn. Ik probeer altijd, elke spiritual life weer, een samenvatting te maken van hetgeen wat ik allemaal heb meegemaakt en waar het me toe heeft gebracht. Maar alleen al dat verhaal komt ook nooit echt uit onder een uur. En vandaag wil ik een spiritual life maken over de mogelijke voortgang en oorzaken van allerlei dingen in onze wereld. Maar om toch even de context goed te leggen, dan dus maar even een overzicht by number in volgorde. In 2019 start ik de Haan als een anti-protestkanaal tegen die elite, de Illuminati of de verborgen handen, geef het een naam. Vervolgens kom ik door al mijn ervaringen in het zogenaamde verzet dat dit vrijwel volledig in zijn geheel bestaat uit acteurs en actrices die, net zoals alle andere politici en bijvoorbeeld ook alle andere media in Nederland, alleen maar bestaan om dus het beeld te beheersen wat de Nederlandse burger heeft. Ik ben er namelijk achter gekomen dat alles eigenlijk predicted programming is en wij, de burgers van Nederland, een slavenvolk zijn in gevangenschap. In de illusie dat we vrij zijn. Niet alleen in Nederland, maar de hele wereld is ingedeeld als zo'n slavenkolonie. Vervolgens krijg ik door mijn ervaringen en dergelijke een spirituele ontwaking. En door deze paranormale ervaring begin ik nu ook de wereld vanuit het juiste perspectief te zien. En heb ik een open verbinding met mijn hogere bewustzijn. Ik ben blijkbaar dus ook door de eerste laag mind control heen gebroken destijds. En het voelde ook letterlijk alsof ik weer een jong kind was. Born again Christian. Super overtuigd, echter niet zo religieus. Maar nu dus wel duidelijk met een missie en met de juiste backup. Na enig speurwerk kom ik natuurlijk vervolgens achter de verborgen cult die Nederland beheerst. Een secte die vanuit Nederland de hele wereld als een slavenkolonie aanstuurt. Mensen die al bijzonder ver teruggaan en buiten het systeem staan. Altijd in de schaduw blijven en iedereen voor een karretje spannen. Het huidige slavenkoloniesysteem stamt al zeker uit de VOC-tijd. Het bedrijf wat een wereldmonopolie heeft gehad en sindsdien via chantage en intelligentieoperaties de gehele wereldbevolking tot slaaf heeft gemaakt. Vervolgens kom ik erachter dat deze verborgen handen niet alleen hunzelf hebben verborgen en hebben weggeschreven uit de geschiedenis. Ze hebben zelfs hun hele eigen eiland volledig van de kaart laten verdwijnen. En allemaal weggezet als een sprookjesachtige mythologie. En beheersen ze dus sindsdien ook alle routes die de burgers überhaupt kunnen volgen. En komt er dus helemaal niemand in de buurt van hun eigen gebieden. De misleiding is zo groot dat natuurlijk 99,9% van de wereldbevolking tot in zijn fundament volledig is overtuigd van het universum zoals het ons is gepresenteerd. En vrijwel iedereen heeft die diepe fundamentele overtuiging gekregen doordat hij slechts en alleen in zijn zeer vroege kinderjaren deze onzinverhalen slechts enkele keren, maar wel dwangmatig hebben gehoord. In de context dat het werkelijke model, wat men in de tijd ervoor dus aanhield, zeg maar, de zogenaamde platte aarde, natuurlijk het meest belachelijke was wat moderne mensen konden denken. Dat hoor je 2 jaar lang en daarna ga je naar groep 3 en leer je lezen. En daarna hoor je er eigenlijk nooit meer wat over. Maar je bent er dus wel fundamenteel diep van overtuigd dat al deze schijnbare wetenschap natuurlijk meer dan echt is. En het wordt ook ondersteund, zo lijkt het, door allerlei geavanceerde en mega dure ruimtemissieprojecten in hun pogingen dat oneindige universum te verkennen. Maar de waarheid is natuurlijk dat het helemaal nergens naartoe gaat. En waarom ik nou zo op die platte aarde blijf hameren, is omdat juist deze specifieke gekke theorie het hardst bestreden moet worden door alle andere gecontroleerde kanalen. We kunnen overal over praten, maar de platte aarde is onbespreekbaar en belachelijk. Echter hebben jullie allemaal gezien dat er niets overblijft van geen enkele kritiek komende van de bolaarde. Het is ook voor mij geen enkel probleem om met 9 van de 10 mensen zomaar deze Flat Earth discussie aan te gaan. Want iedereen is namelijk fundamenteel zo overtuigd van zijn gelijk, maar beseft dus niet dat zijn fundamentele overtuiging als een kinderachtig slecht onderbouwde flutwaarheid volledig om zeep geholpen kan worden wanneer we naar de feiten gaan kijken. Jij denkt het allemaal te weten met die bolaarde, maar ik kan met mijn gezonde verstand onvoorbereid elke bolaarde kapot maken. En jij kan het natuurlijk ook. En het is slechts een kwestie van anders leren denken en beseffen dat alles wat jou is geleerd door de instanties en door de overheden er is om jou te misleiden, te indoctrineren en tot slaaf te maken. Onze maatschappij wordt nu eenmaal beheerst door een satanische secte die door een eeuwenoud verbond en met een duivelse samenwerking de gehele mensheid ook zo zwaar heeft geïndoctrineerd en tot slaaf heeft gemaakt. Alles is daarop gericht en het menselijk bewustzijn is ook zo makkelijk te hypnotiseren. De meeste mensen denken bij hypnose dat je in een soort van trance bent en dat dat dus de hypnotische staat van de mens is. Maar alles is een staat van hypnose of een hypnotisch commando. Ga maar eens na in hoe subtiel jouw eigen beeld over dingen kan veranderen wanneer je bepaalde nieuwe kennis tot je neemt. Dan gaan dezelfde situaties voor jouw ogen of door jouw ogen er ineens heel anders uitzien. En kun je bijvoorbeeld vaststellen dat je zowel dus daarvoor als vanaf dan hypnotisch bent beïnvloed in jouw visie op deze situatie. Niet alleen jouw beeld van de situatie, ook jouw ervaring wordt anders. Iets wat bijvoorbeeld eerst nog eng leek of misschien was, is nu veel meer vertrouwd of onder controle. Het menselijk bewustzijn is in zijn geheel gehypnotiseerd en straalt dus ook in zijn geheel een hypnotische wereld uit. Alles is een illusie en het is onze eigen perceptie die zaken tastbaar maakt. Verander je perceptie door bijvoorbeeld zelfrealisatie, meditatie, maar in extreme gevallen zelfs met drugs, en jij verandert jouw illusie van de wereld. Alles is predictive programming. Het is namelijk ook de enige verklaring voor het feit dat er nu bijvoorbeeld achter elkaar er zoveel treinongelukken gebeuren en milieurampen. Het feit dat er natuurlijk een film is gemaakt in nota bene de plaats waar het eerste grote ongeluk gebeurde. Een jaar ervoor werd er natuurlijk dus een film gemaakt waarin deze treinongeluk werd uitgebeeld. Om dus in het echt een jaar later te gaan gebeuren. ook het start zijn lijkt te zijn of leek te zijn van een hele reeks soortgelijke ongelukken. En nu zul je ook ongetwijfeld gaan zien dat er qua bewijzen misschien ook helemaal geen opzet in het spel lijkt te zijn bij al die ongelukken. Maar dat hoeft dus ook niet, want het is namelijk predictive programming die het menselijk collectief bewustzijn deze situaties laat creëren. Het is dus wel degelijk zo opgezet door de instanties en de elites. Zij planten op deze manier natuurlijk slechts het zaadje met zo'n film en het menselijk collectief bewustzijn, die deels gehypnotiseerd raakt door dit fictieve scenario, creëert een fysieke reflectie in zijn wereld. Het eerste ongeluk begint en mensen worden in een steeds groter bereik bewust van deze situatie en wat vervolgens een soort kettingreactie triggert van hetzelfde soort gebeurtenissen wereldwijd. Zo krachtig is dus predictive programming. Maar niet eerder is het natuurlijk zo open en bloot, overduidelijk zo specifiek in detail voor ons als een beetje uitgespreid. Het plaatsje East Palestine in Amerika heeft 2000 inwoners of zo. Niemand heeft er ooit van gehoord, net zoals dat daar ook helemaal niets gebeurt. Behalve dan dat er specifiek dus voor die locatie is gekozen om een populaire, grootgebrachte Netflix-serie op te nemen. Die gaat over een ernstig treinongeluk met een daarbij behorende chemische milieuramp. En een jaar later gebeurt dit echt in dezelfde plaats. Als het geen opzet was, dan was het toeval. Ben je nou heel erg gehypnotiseerd door het mainstream nieuws, dan zul je inderdaad zeggen dat dit toeval is. Toevallig. Net als dat er in de weken erna zeker 10 soortgelijke ongelukken wereldwijd zijn gebeurd. Toeval. Ik hoor het bijna Mark Rutte zeggen zelfs. Ja, is gewoon toeval. Net zoals dat het heel erg toevallig is dat er bijvoorbeeld vorig jaar rond deze tijd er massaal vliegtuigjes aan het neerstorten waren op grote voedseldistributiecentra in Amerika. Toeval dus. Opzet dus. Want toeval bestaat niet. En waarom gebeurt dit dus? Omdat wij een slavenkolonie zijn die gaat worden geruimd. Zo is het namelijk altijd al gegaan. Onze huidige mensheid is namelijk ook nog niet heel erg oud. Minder dan 200 jaar. Tussen 1850 en 1880 is de wereld opnieuw bevolkt met kinderen. Een wereld die reeds gebouwd was en vol stond en staat met geavanceerde architectuur. Die niet gebouwd is door onze huidige mensheid of beschaving. En die hoogstwaarschijnlijk dus is gebouwd door een vorige mensheid. Voordat deze parasieten de boel hebben uitgeroeid middels een geavanceerde en allesverwoestende oorlog. Ik ben me dan helemaal bewust dat de wereld natuurlijk een creatie is van mijn bewustzijn. Maar wat ik in mijn wereld zie, heeft deze verklaring. En als het blijkbaar dus iets uit te vinden is over onze wereld, wat me inderdaad ook zoveel verder heeft gebracht in het ontwakingsproces, is natuurlijk wel het realiseren van hoe groot en hoe diep en hoe ver die fundamentele misleiding al teruggaat. Je kan er sowieso van uitgaan dat alles wat jou ooit is geleerd en wat jij niet voor jezelf hebt geverifieerd, een lulverhaal is. Nogmaals, puur om jou zo ver mogelijk van de waarheid af te houden. Het is dus ook helemaal niet gek om voor jou tot totaal gekke theorieën te komen, maar die dus wel heel logisch klinken en een beter begrijpbaar antwoord zijn als alle vage theorieën die men jou heeft voorgehouden. Er is namelijk alles aan gedaan om jou je eigen intuïtie te laten wantrouwen. En ik zeg je dus vooral op je intuïtie te vertrouwen en er ook op te vertrouwen dat jij altijd al van hogerhand wordt ingegeven in jouw acties en ervaringen. Dus als jij je hart blijft volgen, zal jij op de juiste plek zijn en het juiste doen wat op dat moment het juiste is. Dan ben jij het ultieme puzzelstukje in deze dynamische, interdimensionale, holografische puzzel. Het verder compleet maken van deze puzzel leidt jou tot vele realisaties. Realisaties die jouw ogen gaan openen tot een veel grotere wereld. En voor mensen die zo dwangmatig aan hun indoctrinatie, zoals die boltheorie, willen vasthouden, of het idee van het universum, de ruimte, de planeten en de buitenaardse wezens niet buiten beschouwing kunnen laten, wil ik graag één ding zeggen. Jullie hebben werkelijk geen idee wat je allemaal mist als je eraan vast blijft houden. En wat je allemaal beseft wanneer op zoveel plekken binnen jouw bewustzijn deze indoctrinatie wordt opgeheven. Dat is pure kennis, magie en een hogere staat van zijn. Dit is voor iedereen bereikbaar. Je hoeft slechts te leren luisteren naar jezelf en erop te vertrouwen dat jij, wanneer jij handelt naar je hart en intuïtie, jouw leven op een geniale manier gaat veranderen. En jij boven elke vertrouwenskwestie, angst, trauma, nare situatie of schuld of wat voor struggle dan ook zal komen te staan. De waarheid zal je bevrijden, want jij creëert de wereld om je heen. En wat je nu hebt gecreëerd is een gevangenis op basis van leugens. En dat is de waarheid. Een hele goede dag verder, mensen. Ik sluit hem voor mezelf nu af, maar hierop aanvullend nog even wat veelzeggende ondersteunende beeldmateriaal met Engelse narrative, mensen.
In this video, I'm just going to show you the photos so you can judge for yourself, and then at the end of the video I'm going to tell you the whole stuff, in a quick, short and to the point without so much blah blah. Let's see the photos. I guess you will understand where this is going to. Just going to show you these black and white photos from the 1800s and the early 1900s, and yeah, I guess I don't even have to say the name because you can see what's written. I'm sure you've seen this photo with the train. I'm actually even afraid to say the word with O-R, so or, you know what, P-H-A-N, but yeah. So I'm showing you this. I'm afraid of speaking about it because people called me a crazy conspiracy theorist, even though the facts are there. And if you go through history all the way to 1850s to 1880s and before, you understand what happened. It's very sad, very diabolical as well, once you know the whole stuff and why the adults of those days allowed for this to happen. There were barely any adults, and I'm gonna tell you why at the end. Let's just be shocked by our human species past, recent past, and ask the question why the adults like you and me back in the day allowed for all this to happen. Such a sad humanity we are. So of course there's then the people among us who think that we are super special, super supreme DNA human special. I'm not blaming them because rather than being shocked by the truth, people like to live in a fantasy where they call themselves special and all that stuff. Anyway, so let's see more stuff. Yeah, no adults, just kids and early teenagers, or even not even teenagers, like below the age of 12, below the age of 10 most of the times. Let's see more. Yeah, and more. I'm sure many of you, I'm hoping I'm not doing anything bad, because this is just like, these are historical photos. You should be proud of your human species from the 1800s and the 1900s. This is awesome, amazing. I've done videos about this. Do you see what's written there? Incubators with living. But yeah, I'm still gonna tell you at the end of the video what the whole point is, but it is really scary to actually say it, because the big majority of humans don't want to know about this. Even if they would understand it, they would just call you crazy, because that's how the human brain operates. And well, people love fantasies more than the real stuff. Hey, baby incubators. Hey, look at this. Incubators with living. Yes. Yeah, of course. I'm gonna show you this photo with cabbage. I'm not gonna go. About it, because again, people judge and they call you a crazy conspiracy theorist in the basement of your grandpa and grandma, with no studies, and especially when you tell them that you're not living on a spinning ball with curved water, that's even worse. So yeah, that's yeah. So I'm just gonna show you more of this stuff, and yeah, definitely this one is also very important. You're gonna see it from a new perspective once I elaborate a bit more. So now let's stick with one of the photos. I would stick with this one, but I actually prefer the one with the incubators. Well, this one is actually quite decent as well, but let's stick with this one. Okay, I'm actually afraid to leave any of the others on the screen too much, because you never know, maybe I'm not allowed to do this, because even though they're just historical photos, but who knows. So quick, short, and to the point, and no sugarcoating. Our human species has been put in this place between 1850 and 1880. So 1850, 1880, 19th century. That's why they call it the first industrial revolution. That's why you see only kids and no adults, because there was an atomic destruction of the world. That's why you have radiation and deserts everywhere. That's why you have the catacombs in places like Paris and even in the States and Russia, with lots of human remains. There was cannibalism as well before, but I'm not going to speak about that. And after the world was destroyed, the repopulation started in the 1800s with a very specific, lots of genetically engineered and put into place, infants and children. That's why you have all the companies working with them. Although if I was the adults of those days, I would have waited for them to grow. But I guess they didn't care. So that's why you see the graphs of the human population, which went super. So the human population graphs of the previous centuries are shown as pretty much flat. And then from the 1800s, especially the 1850s onwards, the graph goes like pretty much upwards. That's the reason why, because it's impossible for a human species to multiply themselves so fast without the aid of genetic production. And that's why you have Coney Island and all the other places as well. So, and then that's why, not in just my case, my family, I know because I've spoken with my parents who spoke with their great-grandparents, and their great-grandparents who were born in the 1860s, 1870s. They said they don't know anything about their parents, they have no clue where they come from, and they don't remember anything before the age of 14. So that tells you everything. And I've spoken, some people told me via private messages that they also spoke with their parents and grandparents who told them that when their grandparents or parents were kids, they met their great grandparents who were born in the 19th century, and also they told them that they don't know who their parents are, and they don't have any memories of when they were children, like between the ages of 4 or 5 to all the way to 12, 14, which that's pretty much the same thing everywhere in the world, every continent. So that proves that they were put in place already, taken from the incubators, produced, and that's why they call them orphans, because obviously they didn't have any parents, because they were produced artificially in mass. But that's something that you're not allowed to debate too much, because people don't like you about that. But anyway, I think I can still say this because I'm not doing anything bad. So they were allowed to multiply and used for work, and that's why in 1900, so after the First World War and especially after the Second World War, education was compulsory to go to school, because it wasn't like before. Before they just had these labor, physical work corporations where you didn't have need any intelligence to do stuff. But as the 20th century came along with computers and stuff, you needed more intelligence. So that's why they made education and going to school compulsory, because you needed a certain level of education to be able to work in the new corporation environment. So that's the only reason why they forced us to go to school, and they didn't force the kids to go to school back in the 1800s. So it's all about making money for the lords of the corporations and the money system in the system. In this enclosed system we call the level flat earth with level water with no spinning curvature, surrounded by a dome, and we're electrical beings. Now, don't ask me who is the owner of this. You should just watch some movies and TV series. They show you a lot about that stuff. Gosh, I'm getting a headache right now. Don't blame me for just revealing typical stuff that you can also do for yourself by just analyzing the photos of history and the history of our human species. Because once you accept things, it's very easy, but you need to be very open-minded about this. For me it's fascinating, and I don't care, but I understand why the big majority of people, they want to be special in the kingdom of heaven, the eternity and all that stuff, because people get depressed all the time. Everybody's depressed. Everybody needs money and good sex in their bed and a partner, and not everybody gets that in their lives. So that's why people get super ultra mega depressed. I had like my work colleagues when I was.
According to the heliocentric model, the sun has a diameter of 865,370 miles, while the moon has a diameter of 2,159 miles. With proper scaling, that would mean that if the sun were 8 feet in diameter, then the moon would have a mere diameter of 0.2 inches. In other words, the sun would be the size of this 8-foot beach ball, and the moon would be the size of a tiny airsoft BB. In fact, when compared to the sun, the moon would be approximately this small. Yet, when you watch a solar eclipse, the sun and moon have the same apparent size. And you can see this nearly every day as the sun and the moon traverse the sky. Now, a globe proponent will claim that this same apparent size of the sun and moon is entirely a coincidence. Think of the nearly impossible odds that the sun and the moon are the same apparent size based on a random explosion of the universe. Then think of the impossible odds that it just so happens that we are randomly here to witness the same. Those odds alone should cause any thinking, reasonable, and objective person to question the veracity of the ridiculous heliocentric model. Weigh the evidence. The same-sized sun and moon proof alone debunks the heliocentric model. And it is so simple to understand, and yet this proof is so overlooked. What do you think is more likely? That these two lights in the sky just happen to be the same apparent size based solely on a random explosion, or that you're mentally incapable of letting go of your heliocentric faith due to your indoctrination? What I also find interesting is that the heliocentric model seems to have a myriad of these unbelievable coincidences and claims. When you really look at it, ridiculous and unfounded explanations form the foundation of the heliocentric model defense. For example, globe propagandists claim that this laser that was 21 miles away from me wrapped around the curvature of the Earth in an arc just to present a flat Earth to me. At that distance and viewer height, 223 feet should have been hidden behind the curvature of the Earth. For some unbelievable reason, the laser and the image of the opposing shore all wrapped around the curvature in a perfect arc, evenly and without visible effect, but the giant Earth bulge escaped and did not get wrapped around the curvature, but simply disappeared, all due to some magical and selective refraction properties. Reason and logic have nothing to do with the globe faithful. As another example, the globe propagandist claims that the real horizon, which you cannot see, is actually in front of these two oil platforms. With an observation height of 1 foot, under the globe model, the horizon, as a geometric edge of the globe, would have to be closer than 1.2 miles. Just by coincidence, the physical Earth bulge that was supposed to be 5 miles in front of the first platform disappeared and shockingly relocated miles beyond the second platform that was 9.4 miles away. And this giant Earth bulge coincidentally disappeared without affecting the two oil platforms that the bulge was supposed to be blocking. Ridiculous. It's the same with these wind generators with an observation height of 3.5 feet under the globe model. The physical horizon edge would have to be closer than 2.3 miles. And yet you can see the apparent horizon miles beyond the furthest platform, which was 11.2 miles away. The bulge of the Earth that was supposed to be at least 6 miles in front of the first generator just disappeared again without affecting all the platforms that are supposed to be hidden by the bulge in increasing amounts. In addition, even though the heliocentric model says that the Earth is rotating at the equator at approximately 1,000 miles per hour, they claim that the little air as high as 128,000 feet above the Earth is actually rotating faster than the 1,000 mile per hour ground below, and is mysteriously attached to the Earth like spokes on a bicycle wheel, even though the spinning ground could never effectively communicate its motion to the air above it, and so forth. The air should not spin at 128,000 feet, let alone travel faster than the 1,000 mile per hour ground below it. It's just shocking to me that they have gotten away with this stupidity for so long. But let's get back to our solar eclipse. In addition to showing us the absurdity of the huge difference of the claimed sizes of the sun and moon, a solar eclipse also demonstrates another stupid claim of the heliocentric model, that the shadow you're seeing here was actually cast by a moon with a diameter of 2,159 miles. On a map, the width of the eclipse shadow of 2017 was represented like this. But the shadow of the moon with a diameter of 2,159 miles should have looked more like this. They want you to believe that the shadow from the moon comes to a small point, and yet no one can seem to reproduce this effect. The same apparent sizes of the sun and moon, no globe Earth physical horizon, the 1,000 mile per hour spin of the Earth that impossibly doesn't affect anything, no independent travel allowed beyond the 60th south parallel, no north-south circumnavigation, disappearing Earth bulges, the Loran system, the Knickebine VHF targeting system, no sonar Earth bulge shadow, airplane attitude indicator gyroscopes showing no sign of curvature or Earth spin, giant space vacuums, no upward Earth bulge shadows, astronauts dangling from wires, CGI glitches, space shuttle launches that look like they're falling into the sea, silly looking space models, satellites hanging from wires, the never mentioned satellite balloons, the Selenelian, the ridiculous vortexing solar system, etc., etc. No matter what it is, there is always some stupid reason or unbelievable coincidence that fixes the heliocentric faith. The question for you is, how many fails, stupid claims, and ridiculous coincidences do you need before you can see the heliocentric globe model is utter nonsense?
Photos of the expos. This is Chicago, but just like I wanted to show you some pictures, and then you decide whatever you want to believe. Was the humanity that lived before that they built all this, or everything is just like built by our humanity? I see not pictures but paintings in this case, so all people say, oh, this is like has been constructed by the previous humanity of the 1800s, so our humanity. But I see more like paintings rather than photos and pictures. So an agenda used to give you some certain history which has to be created for us to accept. That's everything I see, paintings of something that those people in the 1800s want you and me to believe. But now we're gonna see, after these paintings, we're gonna see the real photos. Do you see the difference? A real photo and a painting. So whenever you see all that stuff about the wood and the planks and everything, which is like supposed to be the construction, those are paintings, but nobody shows you the actual construction itself with real photos. Why? Because these buildings more certainly were there beforehand. So my question is, if our human species of the 1800s, of the 1890s, of the late 19th century are not the builders of this empire, this was like the Roman Empire. So you and I, because of our indoctrination from school education, we call it Roman Empire, but I would just call it the human empire, because these buildings are the same. Also, in the big majority of cases, you never see the interior of these buildings. You look at the size of the columns, the size of the windows, and the size of everything. Not to mention that, considering that this would be something you would have in winter as well, how the heck would you get all the heat? So it's not like because back in those days they didn't have any technology for heating besides burning wood. So it doesn't make any sense to have this in cold winters, which means that technology was different, wireless and electromagnetic, or the weather outside was just proper weather for living and nothing to do with the cold winters. But the interiors and the columns and the ridiculous size of a tiny small human being compared to the columns, you need power, technology, you need massive building skills and massive technology to build something like this, and it makes you and I look ridiculous as the human species that we are when you compare to all this. So my question is, who built all this? Because if it's not us, our human species, then it must be something to do with the previous humanity. I would say the previous human empire in the whole world, or at least one of the two empires. If you consider that in Asia you would have a similar human empire. Also, the fact is that the electricity at night, somebody had to pay a huge electricity bill, so there was no issues about the money you have to spend by paying money for electricity. Or was it like the free energy, free? Because you see this at night, and the amount of power and electricity you need is insane. Also, you would ask the question, why would you destroy all of this after you built it? Because after you build something like this so big, and then you see like this wheel, which again, this is from the late 19th century, so this makes even our wheels today look ridiculous sometimes. And then you have this destruction. You don't destroy something like this after you built it and all the effort and stuff, and you make it, you abandon it and you destroy it to build what? Also amazing the actual thing about who they worshipped, because you see these statues, and of course again we would say Roman, but it's not Roman. So these statues, what do they represent? They represent the actual humanity before, so tall white humans or something else. And then of course you have the destruction. As usual, every single time something needs to disappear from the map, a fire happens. The same that happened with the fires of the cities of the US and Russia, when the US and Russia were not the US and Russia and other parts of the world. A fire comes into place and the fire makes everything disappear. It's so interesting when something has to be zero, has to be reset. You have the fire, and the fire takes everything away. But then a normal fire would never burn rock and stone, because you see this exactly like in the same case like in the German cities and the Russian cities when you have bombings. So you have bombings with laser, also with laser and with bombs and with chemical bombs and with like the typical bombs you would have in the Second World War, and that's the result you have in the city. So bombs do this. Technology of bombing does this, but not a typical fire. A typical fire does not destroy stone and massive rock. But look at this. So as far as I can see, these buildings were there. They used them for the expo, and then of course they did something to destroy everything via technology. Don't ask me who, because I have absolutely no idea. Like you see this, and then you look at what happened. Let's see if this works. You look at what happened, and it doesn't make any sense. So our human species doesn't have the technology to do this back in the 1800s. Therefore, someone else destroyed not just this fair, but everything else, like the US cities in America and Canada and Russia. So are we controlled by a superior human species? Is that superior human species these guys? This is representative. This like...
Now this is something I want you to understand. And you need to listen carefully, because this is profoundly important. Most people have never heard this and don't even understand what I'm trying to say. So try and follow what I'm going to tell you. On the back of the Social Security card will be numbers in red. On the front will be in blue or black, but on the back will be in red. The numbers on the back of a Social Security card in red designate your body. It is the serial number of your stock. And this is why if you're wealthy, you are preferred stock. If you're poor, you are common stock. But you are a stock on the stock market. Your body is bought and sold through the use of your birth certificate. This is why when you were born, you have to have a birth certificate. Therefore, your birth certificate is signed by your mother. And where your mother signed on the birth certificate, get it, you will see it does not say parent or mother, it says informant. You need to wake up and find out how this stuff really works. After the change of the century, coming into 1900s, decided they wanted to expand. They got so much money and they're doing so well. They thought maybe we could expand the business, move the corporation out a little bit. Let's expand business. Let's go to Germany or Europe and open up a big corporation there and take in their corporation, their government. We'll take them over. And the Germans said, "Hey, Jack, it's like a mafia. What are you coming over here? You're gonna buy me? I'll buy you. You don't buy me." Like the Godfather movie. And the American corporation, British American corporation, said, "Unfortunately, maybe you didn't understand. Let me restate it so you understand. I didn't ask you. I'm telling you. We're moving in here. It's called a corporate takeover." And so there was a hostile corporate takeover where the American corporation decided they want to take over in Europe, and they didn't want to be taken over. Well, it's too bad. They take over anyway. So they called it a hostile corporate takeover.
Remco, een avondje op de bank, zag ik. Heb je lekker
We call it World War I. So the corporation called United States was able to overthrow the existing corporate order in Europe but it cost a lot of money. They had to build a lot of tanks and jeeps and pay a lot of people. And the corporation, well, they were successful. They did what they wanted to do. But they went broke doing it. And so when they went broke doing it, and then the bankers pulled their money out in 29, we had something called a stock market crash. Because the corporation spent so much money, they went broke. So the international banker says, well, if you're broke, what are you coming to me for? I'm not going to loan you money if you're broke. And so what do you have as collateral? You got any collateral that you can put up for me to loan you the money? And the corporation called United States, the British corporation called United States, said, yes, we have the stock. We'll give you stock in the company. You are the stock in the corporation. So they give your body to the banks in Switzerland. So your body now becomes stock for the corporation called United States because you are a moneymaker. Bankers came in and said, if we're going to loan you money, you guys have lost money. You guys have gone bankrupt. We're going to take care of the accounting. We're going to see where the money goes. We'll give you the money, but we're going to make it sure it goes where we want it to go. So they set up the Federal Reserve System and then the collection agency to make damn sure that you people pay us. We're going to set up to keep a record of how much you owe us in business each week. We're going to call that the Federal Reserve. And to make sure that your stock, all the chumps out there in America working, make sure the stock pays us. We're going to make sure they pay us. You don't just tell me you're going to pay. I'm going to make sure they're going to pay. So we will set up a collection agency. Our own personal collection agency is called the Internal Revenue. So the banks, the corporation called United States, loan money to the privately owned corporation called United States. And the United States corporation gave your body, your birth certificate, to the banks as collateral for the loan. And that's why today Americans are nothing but slaves. Now this is something I want you to understand. And you need to listen carefully because this is profoundly important. Most people have never heard this and don't even understand what I'm trying to say. But try and follow what I'm going to tell you. There are two kinds of law on the earth, as I've said. One is called civil law, which is the law of the land, and one is called maritime admiralty, which is called the law of water. Maritime admiralty is banking law. And the law on the maritime admiralty says that you, because you came out of your mother's water, are a maritime admiralty product. This is why the ship is sitting in its berth and it's tied to the dock, and the captain has to give a certificate of manifest to the port authorities because money is changing hands. This is why when you were born, you have to have a birth certificate. And it's got to be signed by the dock because that's where the ship is tied to, is the dock. So the dock signs your birth certificate. Why? Because you came down out of your mother's water. You came down her birth canal. You are a maritime admiralty product. And therefore your birth certificate is signed by your mother. And where your mother signed on the birth certificate, get it, you will see it does not say parent or mother, it says informant. Your mother was informing the bank that she has just produced another product to be bought and sold. England, the British Crown, through international banking, owns your physical body. And that's the law. You can think it's funny all you want. So the bottom line is that you are a maritime admiralty product. And on the back of the Social Security card will be numbers in red. On the front will be in blue or black, but on the back will be in red. The numbers on the back of a Social Security card in red designate your body. It is the serial number of your stock. And this is why if you're wealthy, you are preferred stock. If you're poor, you are common stock. But you are a stock on the stock market. Your body is bought and sold through the use of your birth certificate. And if you could get your original birth certificate back, you would find that on the back of the birth certificate are all the banks around the world. All over the world, banks have used your birth certificate because you are a stock in a maritime admiralty banking scheme where you make money for banks. So consequently, the corporation and government and people who want to control you, they create a second you, and that second you that they control, that they created, is all capital letters. Check it out. Anytime you get a bill, get a lawsuit, you get a fine, a ticket, somebody sends you a bill from the Department of Water and Power, check it out on your driver's license, on your Social Security card, on your insurance cards, anything having to do with business, your name will always be in all capital letters, because only all capital letters can be dealt with by banks and government. Anytime you have a name upper and lowercase, that applies to you. I got no control over you. You sign a contract in which your name is in all capital letters, now I can take you to court. Now I can take you. As a matter of fact, the judge sits on a bench. He rules from the bench. The word bench in Latin is a bank. Look it up in a Latin dictionary. So the judge rules from the bench. Right, because he's ruling for the bank. Why? Because somebody's going to pay. It's just a game here. The Queen of England wants a cut of the American blood. She wants a piece. So it's going, somebody's going to pay, and the money's going to go.